The Arab-Israeli conflict, a convoluted tale of political tensions, had been simmering for decades, a pot of discordance ready to boil over. Israel and its Arab neighbors, primarily Egypt and Syria, were locked in a bitter rivalry, their relations strained by previous conflicts and territorial disputes. The military buildup was palpable, as nations prepared for a battle that many saw as inevitable. The Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights became points of contention, their strategic importance amplifying the stakes. These territories, coveted for their military significance, were the chessboard upon which this grim game would play out. Israel's capture of these lands in the Six-Day War had left a wound that festered, and now the Arab nations were ready to strike back. The stage was set, tensions were high, and the region was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. October 6, 1973, a day of atonement turned into a day of conflict. It was Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, when the stillness was shattered by the thunderous sounds of war. Egypt and Syria, seizing the moment of spiritual reflection, launched surprise attacks on Israel. Their initial successes were stunning. The Arab forces, having meticulously planned their assault, capitalized on the Israeli unpreparedness and made significant territorial gains. The Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights, areas of strategic importance, were under heavy onslaught. With every passing hour, the situation escalated, the cost grew. The first days of the war were particularly bloody, with heavy casualties on both sides. Yet the Israelis, stunned but not defeated, began to regroup. They mustered their resilience, their determination, and their courage. Caught off guard, Israel fought back, marking the beginning of a brutal conflict. The Yom Kippur War had begun. The Middle East and the world braced themselves for the unfolding drama of war and diplomacy. As the war raged on, the world watched and chose sides. The military operations were split between the Egyptian front and the Syrian front. On the Egyptian front, the Battle of the Sinai Peninsula was a pivotal moment. Israel, countering the initial surprise, crossed the Suez Canal, turning the tide of the war. On the Syrian front, the Golan Heights became a battleground. Despite a robust Syrian attack, Israeli defense held the line, eventually launching successful counterattacks. These significant battles highlighted the strategic importance of both the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights in the broader context of the conflict. Meanwhile, the world wasn't just watching passively. The United States threw its weight behind Israel, providing critical military aid and resupply efforts. Washington's diplomatic interventions also played a key role in the unfolding drama. Conversely, the Soviet Union championed the cause of the Arab states, offering substantial military assistance to Egypt and Syria. The involvement of these two superpowers was not without its consequences, as it had a profound impact on the global dynamics of the Cold War. The Yom Kippur War was not just a regional conflict, but a global chess game where the world's superpowers made their moves, each trying to tip the balance in favor of their allies. As the world powers intervened, the war escalated, causing a global stir. The war intensified and the world held its breath. Battle lines were drawn deeper as both sides, driven by nationalistic fervor and strategic interests, refused to back down. The international community, deeply concerned about the potential for a larger conflict, ramped up their diplomatic efforts. Powerhouses like the United States, the Soviet Union, and other United Nations member states fervently brokered for a ceasefire. The ceaseless negotiations and diplomatic maneuvering finally bore fruit. The United Nations Security Council stepped in, and a resolution was passed mandating an immediate ceasefire. On October 25, 1973, guns finally fell silent, but the impact of the war was far from over. The Yom Kippur War left a lasting impact on the world. The human cost was staggering, with thousands of lives lost on both sides. This devastating toll forever etched the war into the hearts and minds of those affected. Politically, the war shook the Middle East, redefining relations and realigning powers. Egypt's re-emergence as a key player and the change in leadership in Israel are testament to this. The war also irrevocably altered Arab-Israeli relations, leading to a seismic shift from hostility to negotiation, culminating in the historic Camp David Accords. This conflict also brought about changes in military strategies worldwide, highlighting the importance of preparedness and intelligence. The Yom Kippur War, a war that started on a holy day, changed the Middle East and the world forever.